What's happening, people? Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to another drive time preview. We're on the way home today. It's a beautiful sunny day here today in the sunny southeast here. A little bit overcast as well, a couple of dark clouds there as well, but when the sun breaks through, really strong here. So maybe that's a sign for tomorrow night, maybe, is it? But we have got a Shankly Sessions preview here for you. It's Liverpool versus PSG under the lights at Anfield tomorrow night. Always a special occasion, Champions League games at Anfield under the lights and stuff like that, but still that cloud lingers and stuff like that, doesn't it? Decent performance the other day against Fulham, but again I think Fulham were so poor as well, you know, and even as well as we played and stuff like that, we still weren't in our pomp and clinical really in terms of what we were trying to create and stuff like that. And of course, you know, it's PSG. We're hearing today that the boy Bradley Barcola and all is back, so they've got more or less a full strength squad. So it's going to be a difficult game. And like we remember last year, we took a 1-0 lead into this, and we were playing better football at the time, more cohesive, more joined up kind of football. And you know, they put us out on penalties and stuff like that. So this time they're coming with a 2-0 lead. You know, they got a full strength side. I think they've had their rest over the weekend as the French League supports their endeavours in the Champions League. We've had the game against Fulham. Probably a game that we needed based on the performance against PSG last week. It was just as well probably that we did have the Fulham game, even though the narrative was, well, how come they get the weekend off, and like the Premier League doesn't see this as being important for the Premier League teams still in the Champions League. And of course Arsenal, I think, play Sporting on Wednesday, so it's down to the two of us now. The good news is that the 5th spot has been secured for the Champions League next year, the coefficient one, so that was absolutely vital and stuff like that. And of course the game the other day, as I said during the watch along as well, yeah, the 3 points are absolutely vital in this race for a top 5 spot, and especially with Chelsea playing Man City and now Man United this week, tough task for them to get anything out of both games, which means we could open up a nice little gap there if we could do the job on everything at the weekend. But we'll see what happens there. But we beat Fulham, you know, and it was comprehensive enough. Like, I mean, how we weren't miles ahead after that first half. We were creating chance after chance, suffocating them and stuff like that. They were trying little chances at times, coming out on the transition or on the break, but counter-attack, but nothing really. And we really at times played them off the park. Some of our passing was really good. But again, you're talking about levels. No disrespect to Fulham, but they're not PSG, you know. But this is a huge game. It's our final roll of the dice of a potential trophy this season. Can we summon the night again with the crowd and all, like what we did against Barcelona at that time? And it's going to take that kind of level of performance. Does this team believe in itself? Does this team believe it's capable of turning that around? We heard the gaffer talking after the game, talking about, well, it's only 2-0, and you know because PSG were not had their shooting boots on, and Marmadashvili saved a few chances and this, that and a brand new hat, we kind of, you know, got out of there with 2-0. Certainly flattered us more than it flattered them, to be honest, you know what I mean, because it should have been 4 or 5, I would have thought anyway, based on the chance they created. The big issue here is, you know, trying to score, you know, 3 or potentially 4 goals at home at the moment against that level of opposition is going to be really tough, and I don't see where it's going to come from. I know people will say, right, well, if you score 2 goals, you can take it into extra time and potentially penalties and stuff, but the reality is they're probably going to score. I'd be surprised if we kept a clean sheet against them, especially with the way we've been playing, and especially with the level of technical talent and ability that they have in this game. They've got quality all over the pitch. They've got endeavour and drive all over the pitch. They've got a team that plays for each other. They've got everything that's the opposite of what we were. Kind of like, we kind of played a little bit that way against Fulham at the weekend. But kind of like, you know, different in a way. Different in a way because obviously the level of opposition and stuff like that. But that game against Fulham is probably one of few times this season where we've kind of looked like we'd got it together a little bit, and we were playing for each other, and we were hustling for each other, and we were trying to do stuff. There was effort and energy and endeavour somewhat in our game, even though kind of up front we were still extremely blunt in terms of opportunities were created, but in terms of opportunities, smashing balls off defenders and things like that and all, like, I mean, in terms of really working the keeper hard and stuff, you know what I mean? For him, it wasn't that tough a day at the office. So yeah, against PSG, it's very, very different. You know, you're up against the likes of Dewey and Kravishela, and you know, really, really, really quality players, and that's a real problem. Because it's going to be very hard to keep them out, as well as trying to play on the front foot and be out there trying to score the goals that we need as well. Naturally speaking, we're going to cough up opportunities. So are we going to get a second week where, you know, Dembele looks so ordinary, and, you know, players are going to be smashing balls high into the stand and stuff like that? I don't know whether that happens 2 weeks on the trot or not, so it's really, really difficult to see how we're going to claw back the 2 goals or potentially 3 goals, and also try and avoid coughing up something at the back. So I don't know, maybe the case is that you try and go out and get an early goal, put a bit of wobbly on it, and then maybe try and you know, sneak another one, but still keep it reasonably tight. Who knows who he's going to play? Obviously losing Curtis now is a big thing, even potentially as an option from the bench, even if he wasn't starting. So Curtis will be a loss. He brings that energy. You know, does Mo Salah start again, or does he rip up the blueprint again? Does he try something different? This is what's happened all season. When we've gone out and we have performed and done all right and got a win and put points on the board and, dare I say, kept a clean sheet and everything, you know, the following week in Europe, you rip up the blueprint and you do something different. Does he keep Robbo out there for that vital experience that we need? Does he change it up even further? What does he actually do? You know what I mean? And this is the real problem. This is the dilemma we faced all season, where he just wants to constantly change and do different things. And the one thing I did notice against Fulham, and I'm sure you heard about it on the watch along when you were watching, is our midfield was wide open, and Fulham had the ability to run through it, and PSG ran through it the other day as well. And against Fulham the other day, it was so open. I mean, at times the gap between, was it Dom or whatever, who was in the midfield, Curtis Jones and Dom, and like they were like on opposite sides of the pitch, nowhere near each other, and the whole middle of the pitch was wide open for players to run through onto our back four, something that Fulham didn't really do. You know, I thought Marco Silva would have looked at that and go, straight up the middle, boys, is where we can get the joy. But they kept on trying to go down the wings. We were pressing down the wings constantly, so the midfield became a little bit void. But if you look at where Dom's position was and Curtis's position, where they were rarely even around each other, you know what I mean? And like, when you're playing with a two like that, kind of in a pivot, if you like, you know, you have to kind of, you shouldn't be any more than, say, 10-15 yards away from each other and keep it kind of tight in there. Fulham, really, if they had done their homework, especially first half, if Marco had looked at it, he should have seen that gap was wide open at times. So I highlighted on the watch along, I couldn't believe the space and the distance between the two boys. It was insane. And I think if we deploy that tomorrow night, I think when you look at the players that they have there in that midfield, and then you look at the runs that the likes of Hakimi and all make, stuff like that, they will absolutely run through us and really expose that back four. And, you know, maybe tomorrow night might be the night where you don't get away with a 2-0 and they post a 4-0 and a 6-0 on aggregate or something like that. But it's going to be really, really difficult. The one thing that I do hold hope for is we've been in this position before, so we have experience of having to bring toys back to Anfield and getting the job done, albeit with different teams, with a different motivation and a different kind of togetherness, if you like, you know. Having said that, the other day, the team the other day looked like there was somewhat a bit of togetherness there. There was kind of a, you know, there seemed to be kind of, dare I say, a decorum between the manager and the players and all. And when players were coming on and going off, they seemed to be interested, what dare I say, in the manager, you know, from that point of view. So I don't know, it's hard to call it at the moment. It's a difficult one. It's, you know, it's a tough opponent. We're 2-0 down. Everything is going against us except for its Anfield and the Anfield crowd and those special nights in the Champions League and the fact that we've done them before. Does this team have the ability to rally it one more time in the hopes of continuing our journey in Europe and our chance of potentially a piece of silverware, which, you know, I think would probably fade in the next round anyway, but could we keep it going, you know? Or could we have another one of those dark, disastrous weeks where we crash out and then Arsenal potentially shit the bed and go out to Sporting, and then, you know, the interest in the Champions League wanes a little bit because there ain't a Premier League team left in it, and that's the difficulty. But I don't know. I just don't know whether this team, I don't know whether it has that mental fortitude and deep down to reach down inside themselves and really pull themselves up off the mat, you know, and just, you know, go again and stuff like that, you know, and see what they can do. I think if this team pulls itself together and plays as a team and, you know, fights for each other rather than individuals and stuff like that and all, I think we have the ability. We can beat anyone on our day at Anfield. And in the Champions League this year, whereas we have had one or two poor results, we've had pretty good results at home in the Champions League, beating quality opposition. So it can be done. But it's the hope that always kills us, isn't it? And, you know, it'd be just terrible to, like, you know, crash out in this fashion, and especially in the way we went last week, where it was so poor. I mean, we'd huge doubts even going into that Fulham game, looking at that PSG game, whether we'd be even able to, you know, curtail Fulham and stuff like that. And it was weird as well in the way that Fulham, the starting lineup versus who they brought on, you know what I mean? You would have thought they'd have some of those more powerful guys on the pitch from the beginning, the likes of Jimenez and Emile Smith-Rowe and stuff like that. No, but they didn't, thank God. And the game kind of ran out as a nothing game in the end, where we picked up the 3 points, 1-2-0. Did cough up some opportunities, nothing major, you know what I mean? But like I said, PSG is going to be a very different fight, and we're going to have to come out and we're going to have to play, and the onus will be on us at home with the crowd. So it's not like we can sit back and act like we're the away team, and, you know, we need that crowd. We need to give that crowd something like what we did that night against Barcelona. You know, try and get an early goal, try and create early opportunities, try and get PSG turned and on the back foot. You know, don't give them those opportunities to break away really quickly, exposing Konate and, you know, getting in behind Kerkez or Robbo, whoever it's going to be, and, you know, getting in behind of, I don't know, Frimpong, or I assume he's going to revert back to Frimpong and it's going to be Mo Salah on the right. I mean, I can't see why it would be anything else. I don't see why it should have been anything else the other night as well. So that's what I assume and he's going to go with. And I think they're the kind of players we're going to need on the pitch. I know their form has been questionable, but they're the type of players we're going to need on the pitch if we're going to have any hope of doing anything of this. I think if he goes with some other hokey lineup like he did last week at PSG, I think we're going to have a problem. I suppose the only argument that you'd have there is there's probably an argument against, you know, Cody Gakpo versus Rio. Rio had a good game the other day against Fulham and stuff like that. Got the goal, was energetic, the kind of thing that we need and stuff. So maybe that's what's in his mind about potentially what do you do. But then if he's going to put Rio out on the left, what's he going to do? He's probably going to put Cody Gakpo up top, and he's going to sit the two boys down. And that's a real problem as well, you know what I mean? Because you're trying to get Isaac to play back into form and, you know, kind of rekindle some of that form that he showed potentially before losing him to the injury. But you're only going to get that if you play him. He's been sitting on the bench. He came on the other day against Fulham, and, You know, like, realistically, what did he do? You know what I mean? Not a huge amount, to be honest. So I don't know. So there's a few decisions for the gaffer to make. Whether he'd have the bravery to sit Cody down. You know, I mean, playing Cody up front right on the tip, you know, it's not going to work. It wasn't even working the other day, to be honest. I think we've seen somewhat of an improvement, but nothing that would level up to the level of a PSG game being 2-0 down in a European tie, you know. So let's see what happens. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. What do you think? What did you think of the Fulham game the other day? I mean, you know, it was nice to be able to sit back and see them playing a little bit of ball that was slightly familiar to us on the front foot, interchanging and passing, getting a couple of goals, making it somewhat comfortable. We did say that the 2-0 was a dangerous scoreline, and it was, and they had somewhat opportunities to do something, and you know, if they had scored, would it have been more of the same? Would it have ended up 2-2 in the end or something? Who knows? Seemed like the clock wound down pretty quick as well, you know, in terms of, you know, when Marco made the changes and stuff like that. I think he made the changes quite late on the 2-0 scoreline, you know. I would have been looking at some of those changes more at half time and stuff like that. You need the likes of Jimenez and Smith Rowe and guys like that on the pitch, especially for a team like Fulham, if you want something to happen, you know. The boy Muniz wasn't getting much joy up front and stuff like that for a long stretch in the game, and you know, that change should have happened way earlier, you know, but it didn't. But PSG are going to roll into town tomorrow night, and they're going to be like full strength. You're going to have Dembele there, you're going to have options there with Kvaratskhelia, Barcola, Doué, you know, Hakimi. They've so much talent, so much Fatinia. They've so much talent on the pitch. Very hard to look past them in the tie tomorrow night. I don't know. Maybe it's a case we can pull 2 goals back and bring it to extra time, and maybe, I don't know, in extra time maybe something could happen. Who knows? We could, as I said, you know, it wouldn't surprise me if we kind of shithouse our way into the next round and stuff like that. You know, like it's, you know, or do we have one of these seasons like we can have every so often where, you know, maybe the best team in the tournament or the best team in the tie doesn't go through, you know. We've seen it in 2005, the way we got all the way to that Istanbul final, and like the gulf at times was huge in some of those matches en route to that final, and yet we got there, we were buried at half time, and we just found a way between the fans and between the players and ourselves to dig deep into our soul and find a way to get it done. And maybe that's what has to happen tomorrow night between the fans, ourselves at home, and the team and the players. Maybe this is the time to summon something that could potentially happen. Who knows? Let's see. I mean, let's give it a go. Like, I'd rather give it a go, you know, rather than limp around like we did last week. Last week we were our own worst enemies. Like, we were putting ourselves into trouble. We were doing stupid things. We voided the formation. We voided the plan. Lads were going into business for themselves. At one stage, Kanate was the 10 doing the press, and I'm there going, what are you doing? Like, you know what I mean? And it was just crazy looking, and it was just horrific to see. Like, so poor, you know. And to limp out of a competition that Liverpool as a club values so highly was so disappointing, to be limping out in that way. So hopefully not more of that tomorrow night. Hopefully it'll be different at Anfield with the crowd behind us, and hopefully you get a nice boisterous crowd, create that atmosphere that PSG might find it tough to handle. Who knows? So yeah, let's hope we can get, let's stay positive on the back of the Fulham game, and let's see, can we get 2 goals tomorrow night, bring it to extra time, and see where that takes us. Didn't take us very far last year. We were very unlucky in the penalties as well. A couple of unlucky penalties and stuff like that, you know, and you get the likes of Donnarumma, who's just insane, you know what I mean? But could be different this time with a different keeper between the sticks. So let's see what we could do. Let's stay positive. Let's hope we can get 2 goals, bring it to extra time, see where that takes us. You know, and if we get through, you're probably looking at Bayern, I would imagine. Although I would never rule out Real Madrid no matter what. But Bayern certainly look the better team at the moment. You got Real just not really playing well at the moment. And then let's see what happens on Wednesday. Can Barcelona turn around at Atleti? Or are they going to crash out? Can Sporting do something maybe crazy at the Emirates? Who knows? Could be sitting here at the end of a crazy Champions League 2 days where Liverpool knock out PSG, they face Bayern or Real. And the funny thing about it, and it's like, if Liverpool were to do something tomorrow night and were to get through, you kind of know what's going to happen, don't you? You kind of know that Real are going to find a way to knock out Bayern. It's going to be Liverpool-Real in the semi-final, because we just meet each other all the time, you know what I mean? If one of them is going to do it, the other will probably do it as well, you know what I mean? And it'll be Liverpool-Real in the semi maybe. And then on the other side, who knows? Could the obvious not take place? Barcelona crashing out at Atleti 2 up. Could Sporting knock Arsenal out? Could we be looking at a Sporting Atleti on one side and a Liverpool Real on the other side, and that the 4 underdogs potentially go through based on the first legs as well, you know what I mean? And probably not in Atleti's case because they're 2-0 up, but I mean in terms of if you're up against Barcelona, most teams generally go into that as the underdogs. So who knows? Could we have everyone thinking that it's going to be Bayern and PSG and it's going to be Arsenal and Barcelona or whatever it is, and it ends up being 4 totally different teams? Who knows? Crazier things have happened in the Champions League. But we'll see what happens. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Let us know who you think you'd be starting. Let us know, is Slot gonna tear up the blueprint again after winning against Fulham and keeping a clean sheet? Or will he mess around with things again? What the prediction is going to be? Could this Liverpool side find 2 goals to take it the extra time? Could they find 3 goals and pull another Barcelona? Who knows? Mo Salah's last season, Andy Robbo's last season. Could it be the season where something special potentially happens as these boys are leaving, or could we go out on a whimper like the Slot season when he was leaving and couldn't really deliver much? Yeah, kind of a somber preview, really. You know what I mean? Because it's hard to know, because we've at times we've thought we've turned that corner and we've just been on a roundabout. You just go, win, loss, win, draw, win, loss, and just cough stuff up. So it's very hard to go into any game. I said it already on the previews and on the podcast, even with the boys when we do the weekly lives and stuff like that. It's very hard to put any stock into this team in terms of any game. As I said already, you seen my preview for the Fulham game. I didn't have a huge amount of confidence in that Fulham game, but I mean, the lads proved me wrong, and I'm happy for them to prove me wrong, you know what I mean? All I want is for us to play good football, win, put points on the board, get through to the next rounds, and, do what Liverpool should be doing. That's my expectation of Liverpool as a club that I follow. So yeah, if you could subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification button and drop a like on the video. Appreciate you watching. Check out for all the shorts. Massive amount of content coming this week. It is WrestleMania week, so there's going to be a lot of pro wrestling stuff coming your way as well. We're on the road to Vegas. I will be literally on the road to Vegas come Friday, flying out to Vegas on Friday. Little bit of an issue this week with lives as well, folks, or with shows. My broadband is down. There's a fault with the line and an engineer has to come out. They're telling me 2 to 3 days before I see an engineer. So Bren will probably be hosting Pro Wrestling Weekly. I'll be probably a guest on it using the phone. Apologies for that in advance. There's no Monday mashup tonight, unfortunately. I would have loved to have Marky on, especially do a little watch along for that second half of the Leeds game tonight, but we can't do it, unfortunately, so we sent in a short or 2. Tomorrow night I won't be able to do the watch along for the PSG game, because again there's no broadband. But we might have it back for Thursday, maybe for Thursday Tier Talk with Darren before I head off, so we'll see. And might be an interesting show on the Thursday Tier Talk. Obviously we'll do a review of the Champions League if I have the broadband, and we get Darren's thoughts maybe on WrestleMania as well. Darren on the shows, he doesn't talk enough about wrestling, which is his other passion along with myself. Pro wrestling, football, golf and all. Hope you enjoyed the golf coverage we provided as well. Great win for Rory, congratulations to him. Back-to-back green jackets, back-to-back Masters. Only the 4th player in the history to ever do it. After last year competing the Grand Slam, absolutely phenomenal. You could see what it meant to him. Took an awful lot of course management and an awful lot of patience and an understanding of where he was. Came a little bit unhinged towards the end of the round with a couple of crazy holes, but seeing it through with some really good up and down play and stuff like that, and also fair play to him. And congrats to Rory, long may it continue. We love to see our own do well, you know. Right folks, enjoy the rest of your evening. If you're watching the United Leeds game, enjoy. Come on the Leeds, hope they can do the business tonight, obviously, because we're heavily in that top 5 race and stuff like that, so let's see what happens there. And again, we'll talk to you again as always real soon. Cheers folks.